Thanks to those joining me live and those who'll be joining me on the archive. I'm being joined by the one and the only Russ Anber. You're listening to the D-Style Boxing Podcast. How's it going, Russ?
I'm good, Eric. Happy New Year to you, brother, and to all your listeners who watch. Happy New Year, and hope 2025 is great for all of you. Much health and happiness to you, brother.
Hey, same to you. Uh, the year just started, but here we are. It's funny every time there's a new year, it doesn't feel like the new year yet. Like I feel like I'm still in 2024 right now. So it takes a little bit to get going.
Yeah,
The year just flew by for me. Did it feel the same for you? Did it just like fly by?
yeah, of course it did. But you know what I've learned in all my years now that see you don't have any of this stuff that I got. You don't have any snow on the roof yet. So
A little bit.
what I've learned with this is when time flies is when things are going well, and time never flies when you're in a bad way or there's problems or issues and serious things going on. Time never flies, but when things are going well in your life and when time flies by, that means things are going well in your life. So you start to learn to embrace that.
Start to embrace it, even though you're watching the hourglass. You're like, whoa, hold on, but still, right? I I don't know, but when I was a kid, I remember time felt like forever. I remember a year felt like forever when I was a kid. Like it felt
Yeah.
like forever. Those 12-hour trips with my dad felt like forever. Now a 12-hour trips, whatever. It's quick. The years go by quick. So is that how it is? The older you get, it goes by
Well,
faster.
it's like running. It's like running. When you're a kid, you're running up the hill. It takes a long time. Then you reach a
Yeah.
certain age, and now you're jogging down. And even when you're jogging, it's going faster than you were going uphill. So that's the way it works. Yeah,
So it's
it's
all
designed
downhill from
that way.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Well, there you go. And like Russ said, Happy New Year to everybody out there. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share this on social media platforms and all that good stuff. Russ, let's start off right with the fight. Usyk, box Fury once again. When I saw what they weighed in, I went from confident Usyk was going to win to even more confident. Like I was very confident. I saw the weight and I said to myself, I don't know whether this is Fury just coming in out of shape or whether it's a strategy. Whatever he's thinking, it's not going to work. That's just how I felt about it. And it just didn't really play a factor, the weight. Now that you have had time to reflect on it, like what did you make of Usyk's performance?
Well, first of all, don't be misled by the fake weigh-in that you saw with
Mm,
Tyson, fully clothed, wearing a big leather jacket. Who knows what else he had in the pockets or
yeah,
underneath? Like to me in the ring, excuse me, and he even tried to do it in entering the ring. He had his robe on and he used the old Sonny Liston approach of having a bunch of towels packed under him, to make him look even bigger. I don't think he was uh, any bigger than the first fight. I'm not going to say he was smaller because when a guy weighs 265, 270 pounds, you don't notice if somebody's 5 pounds lighter. You know what I mean?
right.
Like you don't notice that. But he didn't look any bigger than the first fight. He certainly didn't look the so-called 20 pounds or whatever it was that they said he was bigger for the second one. I don't believe that one bit. They never stripped down, so I don't think that that's a real weight.
Okay.
That said, I think he tried to completely change what he did the first time and become more of an imposing fighter. I think he tried to put his physical dominance and strength and power on display against Usyk, believing that the what he did the first time, yeah, I was fooling around, joking around, didn't work, so now I'm going to be serious. Um, I don't agree with it.
Mm,
I don't agree that that was the right thing to do. I think it took him out of his element. I also think, and I think it's fair to say this that, and I said this on a couple other podcasts that I did. The first fight, I believe Usyk was, and I'll use quotation marks for lack of a better word, overtrained for the first fight. Like
okay.
he had been preparing for for Fury during all that time that Fury was fighting Ngannou and Derek Chisora. Usyk was still ready because they never knew when he'd try to call it in and say, okay, I'll fight him now. Oh, you don't want the fight? Then so he was ready all the time. Then we went to a full camp, and we were 1 week out from leaving. We were at the last sparring when the news came in that Fury had been cut and the fight was postponed. Usyk took a little time off and then right back into another full-scale camp. And I know it was hard. We could see it in the gym. We could see that, it was arduous. It wasn't as loose and free-flowing as the first camp was. So that said, a combination of Usyk being overtrained, in my opinion, just mentally tired and fatigued about getting ready for the fight, and a Fury who was more confident, more loose, more loosey-goosey, more difficult to hit the first time. Even though I thought Usyk won 8 rounds in that fight, let's say give him 7. To me, he's a clear winner, plus the 2-point round. I thought Fury boxed a better fight and made it a more difficult fight for Usyk than the second fight.
Yeah.
That's what I think. So, I mean, look, the result is what counts, obviously. I think the strategy that Fury employed, I think, was wrong. I believe the strategy that Joshua employed in the second fight was wrong as well. I think both of them had more success in the first fight when they tried to play chess with the Grandmaster. Not saying that they would have come out on top, but the fight became much more difficult for Usyk at that point, So I think when they decided they're going to try to impose themselves on him, I think that plays right into the strengths of Usyk.
Okay. So both guys, actually, Fury and Joshua, I remember a lot of the criticisms that they got from boxing fans, I guess. And even I saw a couple of even trainers saying they didn't use their size. They didn't
Exactly.
impose themselves. And I guess, I don't know if they listened to those people, or maybe they were just trying something else, because what they did in the first fight obviously didn't work. So hey, let's just try something different. But what do you make of, even now, like, what is he, 7 fights at heavyweight now?
Something like that, yeah.
So, like, and fighting the 2 of the best, obviously, or like aside from himself, and that they're still seeing him as this little small heavyweight. Like, it's kind of astonishing. And I'm not saying he's a giant, like, you know what I mean, but what do you make of that? Because it seems like they're still looking at him as a little small dude, like in the weight class.
Did you see by any chance Derek Chisora's post on Instagram?
Yes.
It was it was great. Because aside from Chad Witherspoon, there was am I right? It was Witherspoon, yeah.
Yes.
Aside from him, I think everybody else. Oh no, I think that might have been the only non-Brit. Am I wrong about that? I have to look back and go on that.
Well, it's Chisora, and then yes,
Bellew,
Chisora, and then
Fury twice, Joshua twice,
and Dubois.
And Dubois, correct.
Yeah.
So, and he had a picture of. And for those who didn't see it, you've got to go and take a look at this on Derek's Instagram. And he said, "Well, I guess we all fucked up, and it was all the British heavyweights that were there." Yeah. Listen, I mean, to think that he's small is. I mean, in this day and age, I can't believe that with all the information that's available out there, I can't believe that people don't get that he's the size of what Larry Holmes was. He's the size of what Muhammad Ali was. He's the size. He's bigger than Fraser. He's bigger than Marciano. He's bigger than these guys. Bigger than Michael Spinks. Michael Spinks came up from light heavyweight and went all the way to heavyweight and was just over 200 pounds. He's bigger than Roy was when Roy won the heavyweight title. So to turn around and that's it. Great.
There it is.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Where's the caption though? You gotta show the captions. Is great.
I'm sure. Well, he. Oh yeah, there it is.
What can I say?
There you go.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So to say he's small is really, you're really showing your ignorance about boxing to say that, because he's not small by any stretch of the imagination. He's a pure, solid, well-built, pure heavyweight, who happened to grow into that body coming out of cruiserweight, and had to be very careful and was very disciplined to stay at cruiserweight and be 200 pounds. But it didn't take much to put him over the edge. And anybody who's ever been at the edge of a weight class knows how easy it is to go into the next weight class. So, Manny Pacquiao jumping up the number of weight classes he did is more, challenging than what Usyk did going up to heavyweight, because Usyk is so skilled and he's a natural heavyweight. Forget that there's that 200-pound division. If the cruiserweight wasn't there, he might have started his career at 210. You know what I mean? He might have started out as a pro at 205, the same way that Ali was under 200 when he turned pro. So I think if you say he's too small, you don't know what you're talking about. And I also think that he's a generational great. Regardless of what Tim Bradley says, like to say he's not is that's even more insanity than saying he's small. But he's proven to be a dominant performer and a winner in more title fights. I mean, in such a short career of number of fights, as many titles and accomplishments that he has, how does that not make you great? Because if you say he's not, then just say that the sport is shit and there's nobody in the divisions and any fool can do what he did, because that's what you're saying. If you don't say he's great based on the accomplishments he's done, then everybody should have been able to do it, and the sport sucks and there's no more fighters in the division. Take your pick.
Well, if I quote Tim Bradley, I mean, he was calling in hypothetical matchups, he was saying that Fury could beat anybody, that he's the greatest of all time. That was out of his mouth.
Yeah.
On a live broadcast watched by millions of people on ESPN, he was saying this. So, not to mention, he was also saying it beforehand on podcasts and stuff. And then if he beat the guy you said, like Muhammad Ali couldn't beat, Larry Holmes couldn't beat, you said that nobody could beat this guy, he's probably the greatest ever. And Usyk turns around and beats him, not only once, but twice, and not because he caught him with a big shot and maybe knocked him out. He proved he was a better fighter in 2 fights. Not luck, just outboxing him. He tried 2 different ways. He tried to box him from the outside. He tried to be more imposing, and nothing worked. At the very least, Bradley should give him some credit. I mean, I don't know. Can you give him some?
You would think, right? I mean, that's just logical, right? So it bothers me, when people do that and they don't want to give the credit where the credit is due. And not only that, if you want to add one more to the list of accomplishments on Usyk's part, if you're not happy that he wiped out an entire division single-handedly, then wiped out the entire heavyweight division and Britain at the same time. He did the division and Britain all at the same time.
Yeah.
Can we also make mention that he is arguably the greatest road warrior that boxing has produced?
I mean, you have to argue that, yeah. Because
think about
every
it.
title fight and not just on the road, like in the champion's backyard.
That's right. That's what I was going to say. In the champion, Gassiev in Russia, Bradis in Latvia, Hook in Germany, Bellew in the UK, Chisora in the UK, Joshua in the UK. And to win in the UK, it's not easy, bro. It's not easy to win in the UK. Anybody who's gone over there will tell you that.
Yeah, like he basically took over, like he conquered the, if you want to call it, the British Empire. I mean, that's what he did at heavyweight division.
Sure
and the closest home field he ever had was the fight in Poland against Dubois. That's about it.
Yeah.
And it's still not Ukraine, but but I mean, he deserved the one at least, right?
Of course. You can cut the guy a break. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Saudi Arabia, I mean, if people call it neutral, they want, but I felt like it was all about Fury. Like, in my opinion, it was clear to me they wanted him to win.
The whole promotion is controlled by Queensberry. The security around the ring is Queensberry. The commission that assists Jose, who's the Saudi commissioner, but everybody around it who's working, it's all UK. The rules that they use are based on the British Boxing Board of Control. So, look, it's like being there, and the fans were over there in support, of Fury for sure. And obviously, it's far easier for them to travel than for the Ukrainians. Loma couldn't even get the pass to leave the country to go to the
Mm.
fight, because you have to
Wow.
make a special request to leave the country, right? If you're a man, women can go, but men can't just walk out of the country. And he couldn't get out, so it's not even easy for them to go. The Brits are able to fly over. It's a 5-hour flight. They're there, no problem. So yeah, it sure felt pro Fury for sure.
Okay. Well, that is very, very. Uh, it's just interesting what Bradley was saying because he has such a strong, like very strong opinion about. He's just going out of his way to make sure people just know he's not an all-time great.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. He's really he's doubling down on it, isn't he? He's
Yeah.
doubling down and saying, "Come on, man, please, come on, man." Okay, but what exactly would you have to do to be an all-time great? Like, where would you put these qualifications? Do you think that this would be easy? Like, Holyfield would get in there with him in his best, and this was going to be an easy one-sided performance? Like, really? Why why would it be that? What would give you any
Mm.
indication that this guy couldn't hang with anybody in any generation? Why couldn't he?
I mean, we're already seeing a lot of the comparisons out there from both sides, but I'm seeing the memes and stuff like that, which is, I mean, that's boxing. They're always going to compare the current fighters to the fighters of the past, good, bad, or indifferent. How do you personally feel? Like, how do you think Usyk would have done? Let's say, like in the '90s, the '80s, the '70s, like in those three separate decades. How do you think Usyk would do?
Look, I said this before, and I think there's an article that just came out in the Ring magazine, the one that was the new print version that came out just before the rematch, and there was an article in there that I wrote, and I said, I think Usyk is a tough out for anybody in history. The
Mm,
same way that I even believe that George Foreman, potentially, George Foreman would have beaten any human that ever lived on a given night. That punching power that he had,
yeah,
technically, he could have knocked out any human that ever lived.
yeah,
So, I firmly believe that Usyk, gives hell to anybody he fights. Does he have a problem with a 1964, 1965 Ali who's on his toes, dancing and flicking jabs and not sitting there waiting for him to get into exchange? Of course he has a problem. He has a nightmare with him. The same way that, Rocky Marciano has a nightmare with him. The same way Joe Louis would have gone mental. He went crazy with Jersey Joe Walcott, chucking
mm,
and jiving in front of him. I mean, Ali would have driven Joe Louis insane, at his prime. Would he have been? But he'd have been there, and he'd have hung in there. Larry Holmes would have been a dangerous fight for anybody. Larry Holmes, I don't care who you're talking about. If
the
what
jab.
happens, please, boxing people always give Holmes credit, but the layman does it. One of the
Mm.
greatest fighters that ever lived. A great chin, a massive heart, and fantastic skills. Like, just phenomenal what Larry Holmes could do. That was never going to be easy. No heavyweight in boxing history is going to have an easy fight with Larry Holmes. Well, I don't think anybody's going to have an easy fight with Usyk. You might win, you might lose, but you're going to be in a fight. You're going to be in a damn fight, and you're going to have to solve somebody who's going to work at a rate that maybe you're unaccustomed to, and certainly the fighters of the last 10, 15 years, the heavyweights of the last 10, 15 years who have all gotten bigger, but have fought at a much slower pace than we're accustomed to seeing.
Mm.
You're going to be in a fight, man. When you got this guy thinking he's a middleweight and he's supposed to fight 3 minutes around and throw 100 punches around, you're going to be in a fight.
Is it fair to say that he's the best Ukrainian heavyweight, surpassing Vitaly and Vladimir at this point, in your
I,
opinion?
I I I think he's more complete. I mean, I think if you look at him, I think he completely redefined him and Lomachenko
Mm,
redefined the Ukrainian look. I think a lot of people, associated the Klitschko's with the Ivan Drago mold, from the Rocky movie,
yeah.
right? That very basic, hands out in front, Paul with the lead hand, boom, right hand, boom with the right hand. There was no hooks and digging to the body and shoe shining on the inside. There was none of that. There was none of that pivoting, the footwork that he has where he spins around you, turns, hits you with the backhand, spins this way, hits you with this hand. Like, he does a lot of great stuff that, smaller fighters do and Lomachenko does. And everybody's really impressed with Lomachenko, as they should be. But the fact that such a big man can do it as well is equally as impressive, if not more, that he gets away with doing that. So yes, I think he surpasses the Klitschko's. I think he had that movement and more variety of punches, a better defense, a fantastic chin, a great work rate. 100%, 100%, 100%.
No, for sure. Shout out to MAW from Australia. Hello, boxing fans. Z-Style, Russ in chat. Usyk is an all-time great, future Hall of Famer, no doubt. People forget a lot of previous heavyweights were the size of cruiserweight. Subscribe, share, smash, and like the button. I appreciate that, brother. Look, one last thing I want to say about the whole Tim Bradley thing. Do you think? I mean, there's no way for me to get in his head, right? There's no way for me to know what he's thinking. I would like to think he's giving his genuine opinion, even I completely disagree, but I just think that someone with the knowledge of Tim Bradley, this is a former world champion, I know he knows his boxing, right? Do you believe he's saying things that he really feels, or do you think he's doing it for like the Stephen A. Smith approach, trying to get a rise out of people and get people talking the way we're talking about it right now? And a lot of people are sharing. Do you think there's some of that's influencing Bradley when he says things?
Well, Stephen A. Smith should do that because he's just a media guy. He's not a boxing guy. He doesn't have an area of expertise that people look to get the truth from and to get the honest opinion from a guy who's in the game. You understand? So Stephen A. Smith or shock jocks can do that to get the likes and get the clicks and do all that. They try to rile the fans so that the phone calls come in. And back in my day, that was call-in shows right on the radio. How many people, say something crazy, the phone lights up, the phone lines light up, right? Bradley is supposed to be looked upon as, like you just said, the expert. He's the guy. He's the guy that is on the air. He's the guy that people are supposed to be listening to because they present him out there as the guy to tell you the truth. He's giving you the truth. He's giving you the inside scoop. He's giving it to you as a guy who's been there. What he says is supposed to be gospel. I'd really be disappointed if he's just saying it for clicks, because now you're ruining your reputation a little bit because you're dumbing down. And people are saying, "Wow, he doesn't know what he's talking about." You're getting clicks, but people are saying you don't know what you're talking about. So I'm not sure that, I certainly wouldn't want to say something just to rile people up. I hope he says it because he believes it. I hope he has a way in his mind of trying to, I don't know what that belief is, but I hope it's not just to be fake and just to try to get the clicks. I hope not, because he's supposed to be the expert and he has an opinion that he wants to back up. I'd like to hear what that backup is, especially after having said Fury's, a great fighter. Fury's a great fighter. Well, Fury's a great fighter. This guy beat Joshua twice. This guy beat Fury twice. This guy swept through the division, won undisputed in 2 categories. When was the last time somebody did that exactly, Eric? I don't know either. So, you know what? Like, I mean, if it was so easy, wouldn't everybody be doing it?
No, I mean, obviously, not, like, my thing is like Bradley got criticized like bad by a lot. I saw Tank Davis come out and criticize him when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and they were saying he didn't do enough. And I actually do feel he's a Hall of Famer myself, although that's opinion and everything. But I don't know if he felt the wrath, so he wants other fighters to feel the wrath of these criticisms or something. I really don't know, but he did say, which doesn't make sense to me, he said he's great in his own right, but he's not an all-time great or something like that. Like, oh, he's a legend, but I don't know what that means. Like, you could only be the king of your era. You can't fight people from the past or the future. You can only fight people now who's here.
Of course.
And I want your opinion on this, because to me, it feels like the sport of boxing, it's a global sport, right? It's a worldwide sport. And at the moment, especially at a heavyweight, the Americans are not dominating the way we were used to seeing in the 90s, 80s, 70s. We're not like a lot. Do you think that has a lot to do with it? Do you think people overstate how weak the division is because it's very European centric?
Well, I think they like to make you believe that, especially like when the Klitschko's were king, when they were running the division, boxing's dead. Boxing's dead. No one knows who these guys are. Boxing's dead. Okay, but they were getting 60,000 people to turn up to watch them fight, and they were winning, and they were beating everybody that was put in front of them, and beating them in quite convincing fashion as well. It wasn't like there were these split decision controversial fights. They were dominating, one after another. So it might have been not popular because you're here, but globally it was very popular. And I think we have to be careful of that, of just what kind of narrative gets put out by the Western media or the North American media as to what the reality is, because I think a lot of it seems to be that it only matters if it happens in the United States, and that's not true. In this global world, that doesn't apply anymore. And I think that's being proven, by what's going on in Saudi, and how all the promoters, whether it be Queensbury or Matchroom or Golden Boy, are all running over to Saudi now. Yes, we're here, we'll help. No problem. We want there. Because at the end of the day, it's global, and it's all about everybody wants to make some money on this thing. So I don't know. I think sometimes I just think that people don't give respect to the fighters. And I think when you're the fighter, like Tim is, he should be the guy. He should be the only guy on the broadcast defending the fighter. And I don't remember what fight it was, but there was a fight where he accused a fighter of quitting, or something happened and he called him out on it on the air and whatnot. And I thought, of all people, what it is to be in the ring. There's going to be a lot of people calling this guy out, saying he quit, he did this. You're supposed to be the one defending him. You're the fighter. You know what these guys go through. Let the guys who don't know call them out, but you're supposed to be for the fighters, whatever it might be. You should be edging as neutral as you want to be, and I want to call it like I see it. Yeah, okay, you can call it like you see it, but sometimes there's two views to everything, and you could be the guy that sides with the fighter. And unless he does something absolutely terrible, you should be on that, asking, why did he do that? What happened? What went wrong? And I think that's important to know, that the fighters, the guy there, Roy Jones always used to speak for the fighter, and I think that's important, that somebody who's been in the ring before, who's a Hall of Famer, understands what these fighters go through and should have been on the defense for them. And I think that Bradley should be applauding the exploits of a fellow professional, of a fellow fighter, of a fellow world champion. He should be applauding what he has done, because if anybody else could say, division sucks, there's nobody there, back in my day, this guy would have beat him, but those guys can say that. But you're the fighter. You've been in there, and you know how hard it is to do what he did. Speak on his behalf. Defend that. Even if you don't like the guy, defend what he did.
Now, Haplotap says, last time Tyson beat Ruddock twice, Holmes, Spinks, and had double-digit fights in a year, becoming youngest undisputed champion in history. Holyfield also won undisputed at cruiser and heavyweight. All right.
No, but what we asked was, when was the last time was two undisputed in two divisions? Did Holyfield win undisputed heavyweight? Did Holyfield win undisputed cruiserweight?
I guess, well, when he beat Douglas, that was for undisputed, right?
I don't know. With so many belt era, I don't know. But even if that was the case, let's say that was true. Great. He was undisputed. That's not an easy thing to do, and he did it. And now Usyk did the same thing.
Yeah, we got one name, right? We got one name. There you go. We got one dude who could say. Because I know it was Lino. Some people are saying it was for undisputed. I just don't remember all the belts, because there was 3 belts at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't.
But if he did, okay. I remember Lennox was undisputed heavyweight champion. He was the last undisputed heavyweight champion. Okay, he was the last one. I just said, we know for a fact that in this 4-belt era, not 3, 4-belt era, for whatever that's worth, he became undisputed in two weight categories, and he did it in 23 fights. Bro, come on.
And if Holyfield's the other name, that's great company, right? It's not. It's just great. Speaking of, if I could go back a little bit to the first fight, before the fight, Usyk, he met, like, I don't know if it was the first time they met, but Holyfield went to his dressing room and they were talking for a little bit, and the clip went viral a little bit because, like, when Holyfield walked away, Usyk, he looked excited and he pumped himself
up.
I
was there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there you go. I was going to ask you if you were there. And can you, from what you know, how much of a student of the game is Usyk, and how much does he know about, like, a lot of the greats, like, from the past, aside from the big names, obviously, like Ali? Everybody knows Ali, but is Usyk like a big student of the game like that?
I don't know if he's a big student of the game in the same sense as as Tyson was when Tyson was a kid, because of custom auto. There was a lot of that input and of studying the old time fighters, and I think Tyson might be a real student of the game. Roy Jones is another student of the game. I'm not sure to what degree, but he knows the history, and he certainly knows the fighters that are around today and watches them and sees what they do good. And I'll tell you this, he's a very big fan of Bud. He's a big Bud fan, okay? He thinks Bud is pound for pound great. He likes what he sees in him. He likes how he fights. He recognizes there's something special about fighters, certain great coaches, who can see things that the layman doesn't see. My perfect example of that, to me, is Juan Manuel Marquez. To me, Juan Manuel Marquez did things that were so subtle, so clean, that the naked eye didn't see it. Only a fighter's eye could see it. Only a great trainer's eye could see it. Even the judges, who are laymen, couldn't see the subtlety and the beauty in what he did in the ring, where he would make you miss a punch by this much, and they think it lands. And he would just pick it off right here at the last second, or just parry it enough that it goes over the shoulder. He did things that were so beautiful. I never heard people giving credit to the subtleties that was Juan Manuel Marquez. To me, one of my favorite fighters of all time, and he was too good for the judges who were judging him. Too good for the judges judging him.
Did you have him? Because I had him winning the second Pacquiao fight, the third Pacquiao fight, and then he had to knock him out in the fourth fight. But I had him winning those. The first one was close. I still had Pacquiao winning it. That was a lot of knockdowns to overcome, but I had him winning the second and third fights with Pacquiao.
If I'm not mistaken, Hall of Fame Judge Guy Jutra, who's from Canada, is my friend. I've known him since my day one in boxing. I believe he was the split decision that had Marquez ahead in that fight, in the first fight. So, listen, definitely close fights. But ask Manny Pacquiao. Like, if you want to ask how great somebody was, ask him how great Marquez was. He'll tell you. He'll tell you.
Yeah, it was definitely a maestro in the ring. That's for sure. Man, so Russ, obviously, you've been working with Usyk. That's the high profile fighter you had, and those other fighters. Obviously with Bakram, a big upset, and we talked to you after the fight.
Huge.
Nobody saw that coming. But aside from you guys, obviously the team, but a lot of people were in shock. I'll say that, especially the way he did it.
Well, listen, I can't even say we expected it to go that way. Yeah, I'd be lying then.
So, like, out of like all the things you were involved in boxing, like, if there's 3 fights, you could say, like, okay, that was a highlight of my year, or even it could be more than 3. What were the fights that were the highlight of your year, 2024?
Of the year?
Of the year.
Well, I mean, look, the 2 fights with Fury Usyk. I mean, the pickings are slim, right? Lomachenko, who comes back and flattens George Kambosos in Australia. That's huge. It's a great feeling to be in the corner after having been with with Usyk for so long in his professional career and been part of that. And I don't know if you noticed, Eric, when I fight, when the fights happen, I'm working the corner of either Usyk or Lomachenko. I wear a Ukrainian tie in the corner, and that was given to me by Lomachenko in his fourth pro fight. He gave me that tie, and it was his Olympic tie, and I've worn it, in every fight either one of them have. So obviously, that was a huge win. Bakram, like you said, Janibek going to Australia on 30 days notice for Janibek to fight Mikhailovich, which they tried to rush us into that fight, and we took it, and seeing his dominance, and basically he just keeps beating guys out of fights. You know what I mean? Like, the more he fights, the less guys want to fight him. This guy is that good. He is boxing's best kept secret, most dangerous fighter in the division by far, and no one wants to fight him. He's a very, very dangerous guy, very good fighter. So that was a great win. So what did I have? I had those wins. I mean, how do you top that in the year? When we won the fight, when we won this fight, the first one, I thought, it's downhill from here on in. Like, we just won the undisputed.
What do you do now, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're already at the top of Mount Everest at that point. What do you do now? Like,
exactly.
You climb it again, I guess. Yeah, that's what you did. But
you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy about this game, Eric?
Yeah.
So I'm at this fight day before Christmas. 3 days before Christmas. Come home, and last day at work, saw all the guys at work, and two of the people that we have at work are pro fighters. One is 1-0, and the other one's 2-0. Two good fighters, Kirill and Ayub. But you're going to hear about these guys. Good fighters. They work for me at Rival. And I said to them, look, I just come back from this fight, and the next fight I'm working is your second pro fight and your third pro fight. I'm going to be doing the same job in your corner that I just did with the heavyweight champion of the world. And that's what's crazy about this sport and the love that we have for it and wanting to be a part of it. You give everything you can, and I'll wrap their hands with the same meticulous fashion that I did Usyk. I'll take care of them in the corner the same way I take care of Usyk. It's something you do because you just love it and you want to be a part of it, whether it's in a 4-round fight or a 12-round fight for the heavyweight championship of the world.
Wow. Yeah, it is kind of like downhill from there. Kind of, right?
Downhill from there.
But there's still a lot of great things while you're going down the hill, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's not a cliff. You're just kind of, it's like a ravine. You're kind of like just going down that way. Look, like, how's Rival going for you? Like just in general, like, is it doing better than you expected?
Well, I think everything we've done with Rival is better than I expected. I mean, when I started Rival, it was a means to support my boxing career, to be able to create an income for myself so that I could be at the gym every day at 5:30 training the fighters, so that I could travel for fights, so that I could go do things, to have the gym going, to be able to give equipment to my gym so we can keep that going. I never expected it to become what it has become now. I didn't expect it to happen. I mean, think about it. Like, I'm a small little company from Canada. I was a one-man show from Canada trying to infiltrate a market dominated by the US, by US companies, with Latino fighters, dominated by Latino fighters. And I'm from Canada trying to introduce a brand to the boxing world. And, me, it was just a question of, okay, let's sell some equipment and let's go. I tried to make equipment that at least my fighters could use. I didn't want to just make cheap gloves to try to sell a lot of them for $25. I made, $150 gloves because I needed my own pros to be able to use them, and my top flight amateurs. And I did. And I didn't expect it to become what it has. So I'm very lucky that I've been able to do that, and it's, my wife often complains when I travel, and I said, well, I'm working. And she says, well, you're not working. I said, what do you mean I'm not working? She says, well, you enjoy it. You're not working. You enjoy it. Oh, okay.
You like it too much.
Sorry. Yeah. It's not work if you like it.
Well, I mean, I guess
but it's true.
Yeah. I mean, it's still work, but if you get paid for it, it's work, but
yeah.
Look, do you foresee you like not that I'm trying to get you out of the sport or anything, but like, how long do you think you're going to be doing this? Like another decade, maybe? Is that too crazy to say, or
Did
for
you have
sure?
you been talking to my wife or what? Did she ask you to ask me this
No, no,
or?
I'm just that came to mind when you said that about your wife, but I'm just wondering, is that something you've like even consider? Is it not you're not even thinking about that right now?
I don't ever want to stop. I know there'll be a time when I will, but
Mm,
I don't ever want to stop. And she asked me, are you planning on retiring? I'm not planning on retiring at all. And I will do this. I will stop when I know I can no longer do the job that I'm doing. I will stop of my own. I'll find another way of being in the boxing world. I'll do other things, and I think I there's a lot of stuff I can do. But if I can no longer perform and get up those steps and do the things I got to do, sometimes when we go to the fights, I got the buckets, I got my kit bag, I got 2 buckets I'm carrying, I got towels, and the guys say to me, "Hey, Russ, let me take it back." No, I got this.
mm,
One day I won't be able to do it. One day I won't be able to do it. I hope that day I live to see that day. That I won't be able to do that. For now, I can do it. And I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to keep doing this boxing stuff in every capacity that I can. Whether it's doing media, whether it's working corners. I think the one thing that I don't see myself doing again would be going back to the gym full time, like being a full time trainer that I was.
mm,
I don't think I'll be doing that just because of how time consuming it is for me to do the other parts of my life, whether it be rival, whether it be working with all the other fighters that I work with as a consultant and as an assistant coach and as a cut man, hand wrapper. I don't think I'd be able to give the time that I can to a specific fighter and be in the gym every day. For 30 years, Eric, I was in the gym every day at 5:30. Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve,
mm.
every day. If Christmas Eve fell on a weekday, we were in the gym. And I did that for 30 years, and I had good results. I've been to 6 Olympic Games, I've had 4 Olympians, I've had numerous world champions, 2 from the cradle, from the crib, like that I started in boxing and took them all the way through the amateur ranks and to the pros and for pro wins and for pro world titles. So I can't complain about that. That's the one thing I don't think I'll go back to, but I'm not planning on leaving boxing. I've jumped my whole life of being here. Uh, I'm not going to, after getting there, leave. This is what I wanted to do my whole life. This is what I saw myself doing. This is what I believe that could be part of this. And yeah, I
So,
enjoy it.
so as long as you can carry the buckets up the steps, that's how you know you're good. Is that what that
Yeah,
is?
when I can carry them up good and I'm strong and I still have that energy and passion to be at the fights and yell at the fighter in the corner and give him my heart in the corner,
Mm,
yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. And I saw that even. I mean, I didn't realize it till I watched the fight afterwards. But at the end of the 10th round, when Usyk came back to the corner, I was screaming at him, 2 rounds, you got 2 rounds, and I'm trying to drive that point home. And that's just the passion within me, and the psychology that I learned from Angelo Dundee, of just enough to say the right thing at the right time, just when the fighter needs to hear it, and just to remind them how close we are after going 10 rounds. You got 2 rounds left to go, and some people might not think it's a big deal, but when the fighter comes back to the corner and you give him that bit of information and you let him know, and he sees how important it is for you when you tell him that, and you're driving it home, and they respond to it. They're supposed to respond to it anyway.
So if, let's say, if you were given the opportunity to, let's say, God or whatever, some force came to you and said, I want to give you the opportunity to go back in time and tell your younger self something, or whatever it is you want to say. If you want to change the course of how your life has gone, you could give them whatever secrets you know, right? Would you take that up, or would you just kind of leave things the way they are? Are you happy with the way everything's played out for you?
Well, look, I'd be a damn fool to say I'm not happy with the way things turned out. Like I think I've been, you know, fortunate enough to be able to make my living in boxing and do what I have done and have the success that I've had and worked with the fighters that I've worked with. This has been obviously whatever I did. got me to this point. How could I say, no, there's something wrong? But you learn from everything, right? And there were mistakes made along the way. So yes, I would say, okay, there are maybe certain things that I would fix along the way that say, knowing what I know now. What is that song? That song goes, I wish I knew now what I wish I knew what I when I was younger what I know now. So
Right.
I mean, like, there are things, yeah, looking back on it, I'd say, okay, I'd have done this, I'd have done that, because I know those were mistakes that were made along the way, but they were mistakes that got me to where I am today. If there's one thing I could pick out to say, what would I have done differently? I think my move to the American marketplace of working with more American fighters or more fighters outside of Canada. I think I might have done that sooner. I think I'd have made that jump a little sooner and focused a little more on what I'm doing now, maybe a little earlier than I did now. So
Okay.
I'm, but that's just looking back on it in a perfect world, right? Say, okay,
Yeah.
I'll change this, but leave everything else the same. Everything is great.
Yeah.
So that's not really fair.
Yeah.
But I think I must have done something right. What I got here, and I don't know if I'm wrong, but I think Scully's in this chat room, talking, and he's one guy that I've known, for since June of 1988 we met, and we've been friends since.
You
And
talking about Iceman?
Iceman, yeah. And
I don't know that Scully, but
well, if it is,
yeah. Yeah.
he knows what I've been through and what I've done, and
Okay.
he's seen my passage in life. He's seen what I've come through. He's been part of it. So I don't know that there's much I would change. Who I would like to have back, if you ask me who I'd like to have back, I'd like to have John Davenport back. John Davenport was my first American mentor. He was the first guy from the United States who recognized me, who gave me a chance to work with him, to work with his fighters. He worked with my fighters, invited me down to train with his team. He was his gym was like them and Kronk were like neck and neck. The Second
Yeah.
Street Youth Center in Plainfield, New Jersey. Harold Knight, Darryl Dudley, Albert Mills, all them guys. These were great fighters. I mean, great fighters. And Davenport was a fantastic trainer. He's the guy. He says, "No, I'm not Scully." Okay.
Yeah.
But if I could have somebody back, it would be Davenport, because he was the guy out of everybody, all the people that I've ever talked to in boxing. He's the guy that showed me the most, taught me the most, that I learned the most from: how to work a corner, how to train fighters, how to run your gym, and didn't matter how beautiful your gym was, mattered what you were producing as a coach, and he made me believe that. And he's a guy I hold dear to my heart, John Davenport.
Now, if you could pick out anyone in the history of boxing that you never communicated with in the whole history of the sport, that you could have like a dinner with and talk to, pick their brain, who would that be?
Well, from a coaching perspective, I did it, and that guy was Angelo.
Okay.
To me, Angelo Dundee was the quintessential. And I never thought about Dundee as a great trainer. To me, John Davenport was a great trainer. He was a guy who took amateur kids who never had a pair of gloves on, put their hands up, taught them how to stand, and develop world-class professionals. Okay. I never considered Dundee that type of guy. But as a corner man, as somebody to guide a fighter, as somebody to work a corner and know every little detail, every importance about exactly how a bucket should be prepared, that was Angelo Dundee. To me, that was the master. Angelo, Ray Arcel, Freddie Brown, Eddie Futch, Georgie Benton, those were real guys. So if you ask me one guy that I'd like to talk to, maybe it would have been Jack Blackburn. I think I would have had to ask him and sit down and talk about, what was it like to be there with Joe Louis and to have been with Joe Louis the whole way, and to train that type of fighter, because Joe Louis always going to be one of my favorites because he was my dad's favorite fighter. So
Yeah.
I was always, from a young kid, I knew about Joe Louis, and my father would tell me stories about Joe Louis, which were probably greater than even reality. But that's how powerful he was in boxing and in the world of sports. He was the king. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'd like to go back and talk to Jack Blackburn.
Well, I think the picture people have of Lewis, a lot of it is from the great commentators at the time of the radio, right?
Sure,
Because
of course,
they have to paint a picture for people what's going on in the ring, and you
sure,
kind of take the word for it, right?
yeah,
Joe Lewis for the jab, or whatever they were saying,
yeah,
And so what I remember was because my grandfather was from Mexico, right? But even when Joe Lewis fought, right? Like even in Mexico, like everybody would just be around like the radio, just listening to the broadcast of Joe Lewis's fights. Like
sure,
everything, like he was over there in Parral, Mexico, and like the whole neighborhood, it was like everybody was like listening to the radio, right?
yeah.
Which is it's just amazing how like, and you see these old pictures of like all these group of people in Times Square listening to a fight, and it just I don't think people understand how big the sport was. Like I don't think they can grasp how big and monumental like the sport of boxing was. I
It
don't
was
think people
important.
understand it.
It was also
Yeah.
important, like the home run king and the
Mm.
heavyweight champion of the world were the two greatest titles in sport.
Yeah.
Olympics came around every 4 years. For 2 weeks, there was somebody you liked. Then after that, it didn't matter. The heavyweight champion was the heavyweight champion, even when he wasn't fighting. And I remember my first contact really with boxing was the Ali Fraser fight in '71, and all the kids in the neighborhood. I'm not even 10 years. I'm 20 days away from being 10 years old, and all the kids in the neighborhood are talking about the fight. And this fight transcended sport. It was one of the biggest sports in the history of the planet. Okay, with sporting events in the history of the planet. And all the friends, oh, who's going to win? Ali Fraser, who's going to win? So I asked my dad, I'm 9 years old. I asked my dad, I said, Dad, who's going to win the fight? Muhammad Ali or Joe Fraser? And he said, it doesn't matter. He says, Joe Louis would have beat both of them, but that was
Yeah.
his guy, right? Like, so that was
Yeah.
his guy, right? So,
Yeah.
and then he tells me stories about Joe Louis. And when you think about it, there's only a few fights in boxing history that transcended the sport, that
Mhm.
went into the world, that went into the political landscape of boxing. One is Jim Jeffries against Jack Johnson, which, although probably that was more probably American than anything else, but the fact that a black man was the heavyweight champion of the world and Jim Jeffries had to be called out as the Great White Hope, hence the name, that we need the Great White Hope. And that has stuck around till this day, that saying, the Great White Hope,
Mhm.
still exists in boxing language today. The second one was this rematch between Lewis and Schmeling, as like,
Huge. Yeah.
can you imagine the pressure that Joe Louis felt after having been knocked dead by Schmeling? And I mean knocked dead. He got hurt in the fourth round, never recovered, knocked dead by Schmeling. And he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. You're in Yankee Stadium. The president's calling you, telling you, yo, you got to win. Like you got to use those muscles for America.
The Nazis were openly rooting
Of
for
course,
Smelling,
of course.
and granted, Smelling had nothing to do with it, not like
No,
what I
he
mean, but
didn't.
still, but that wasn't a perception though.
Correct, correct.
So you have the weight of like, okay, you're trying to become the first black heavyweight champion since Jack
Since
Johnson,
Jack Johnson, yeah,
or defend. I'm sorry, you're defending it because he beat Braddock for the belt,
yeah,
but now you're going to defend against the guy that knocked you out.
yeah,
Like like and you're gonna defend it against him because they didn't trust Braddock to beat him. So
yeah,
so they had you fight Braddock, and so you could defend it against them,
yeah, yeah.
right? And just think about that pressure, which is
Sure.
already big, and then there's that pressure, like you mentioned, the president's calling him. You got to do this for America. You get like you know what I mean? And like
Yeah,
God's on our side. That whole speech you did.
yeah, 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 yeah.
That is a world of pressure that I don't know if anyone in the history has had that level of pressure.
Yeah,
Like that.
and the way he had to conduct himself during an era that was still, although he was beloved, was still, segregation was still in strong form, at that time. So And then the other fight is Ali Fraser won. You know, I mean,
Oh,
there
yeah.
was if ever there was divisiveness in the country, that was it right there. And those were the two protagonists who represented the ideologies of the people. You know, the one that was the supposed draft dodger who changed his religion so he wouldn't go to war and blah 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 blah. And then Fraser, who didn't get drafted, was the guy, you know, the gold medalist, and he was the guy fighting, and he was the regular guy. You know, he was the guy. He didn't have a standout political position that he stood on, and Ali did. And that, was the implications of that fight, especially Ali coming off the retire, the forced exile, was massive. The people watched. This wasn't just about sport. This
Yeah.
this transcended sport. And yeah, it's crazy. It's
And,
hasn't been
and
many, but those were important.
and for Ali to fall short against Frazier when he came back,
Yeah.
he had a couple of fights, but then he fought Frazier, and then he had to earn his way back up. People forget about that. It's not like people think because they watch some movies, they think he lost to Frazier and then he fought Foreman right after that. That's
Yeah.
right how
No.
it went.
Mm-mm.
But so he had to earn his way back there, and people thought he was going to get slaughtered by Foreman, which is probably another fight that is pretty big too. So, but that's something else. But Russ, this has been a great conversation.
Thanks, brother.
Anything you wanted to add before we wrap this one up?
Well, what I would like to add is there was a gentleman who's been trying to reach us. He says he had an issue with his gloves. And, I believe in my product, Eric, and I want to help this guy out. I think his name on the chat was Haplotypo. Yeah.
Yeah, I could connect with him. Yeah.
If you could, please connect me with him. Whatever issue he's having, we'll take care of it because he says he's having an issue with a glove that is by far and away, the most popular glove and one of the best gloves we've ever made. So for him to have an issue with that, there must be a problem. Maybe he just got something that was wrong. Each of the gloves are handmade. So I absolutely want to take care of him, and it means a lot to me. And we believe in what we do, and I want to take care of that, and I stand by the product. So get him in touch with me, and we'll take care of it.
No problem. We'll definitely do that. This
and
is
then
the
I
one
should
in the.
say to you, thank you for having me again. You're a great guy to talk boxing with, and that's why all you got to do is ask.
100%. And Russ, have a good one. Happy New Year once again. All right, and enjoy the rest of your night, your day, and we'll keep in touch.
God bless, brother. You have a good one.
All right. Peace out, everybody.
Hold on.
We're out.